Hi everyone, it's Mr. Allrod here. I'm going to be telling you a little bit about what the students have been getting up to in Year 8 at the moment. Obviously, as you can understand, we are not in a position to be able to do a traditional parents' evening as much as we would like to. So what I'm going to do instead is, as I said before, tell you a little bit about what the students have been getting up to so that you have an idea about exactly how we have been structuring lessons in order to try and make sure that the kids are still getting as much possible exposure to the performing arts as they can, even though we have had a very different setup at school, and then obviously, particularly since lockdown, with remote learning. What I'll do is I'll start off with taking you through what we did while we were still able to have the children at school, and then I'll talk about remote learning in a little bit more detail as well. We obviously had to completely restructure our lessons. In a traditional school setting, we would be running classes for both drama and dance and music, and the students would be on a rotation of those three disciplines of performing arts all the way through years 7 and 8, so that by the end of year 8 they would have had an equal exposure to all three. That was obviously going to prove to be very difficult, particularly when we came back to school. The students were obviously not able to take part in any kind of practical dance classes whatsoever because of the government guidelines, and we as a school made the decision that practical classes would not work. So what we would have is the children sitting in a more traditional setting at desks and chairs, and that we would have to try and bring the practical elements of lesson to them. So we did our very best. One of the first things we did, if I just show you right now, is in the first term we looked particularly at utilising something called the Arts Award. The Arts Award is exactly what it sounds like. It is an award that is based on all different areas of the arts. So obviously we focused on performing arts, but you can also do it in visual arts, and media, all that sort of stuff. So what we did was we looked at the 4 different aspects of performing arts, which I will just bring up to you now so you can have a look. They are right here on the screen. So you can see it's broken down into 4 parts. You have exploring the arts as a participant. We obviously labelled it so that it was nice and in the sort of non-educational speak for the students. You can see there that it says, instead of explore the arts as a participant, you have do some arts-based stuff. Part B, explore the arts as an audience member, essentially means watch some arts-based stuff. Part C, arts inspiration, was tell us about somebody in the performing arts that you like or that you're fond of. And the last one was a skill share. So the idea is that the students either had to learn a completely new skill or to improve upon a skill that they had already done. The way we looked to deliver this was through the means of musical theatre. We figured that'd be quite a simple way for us to be able to tick all 4 of those different aspects. And so what we did was we did an introduction to musical theatre first of all. So we got the students to talk about what experience they'd have, what they knew about musical theatre. We defined what musical theatre was, what makes a show something that is musical theatre as opposed to maybe a straight play or to a dance piece particularly. And then we looked at some examples. So we focused particularly on Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. And the first thing that we looked at was explore the arts as a participant. We wanted to kind of ease the students in relatively gently to begin with. So what we actually did is we looked at characterization. Obviously, the characters, if you know anything about Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, are vastly over the top, big caricatured examples. So we did some work looking at, for example, all the different characters. And we looked at facial expressions. We spoke about physicalization, how you go about presenting someone as a character if you're not necessarily using words. And then we did move on to some more vocal stuff, and we had the students read out some examples of some of the things that the characters in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory say. And then we continued this idea of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory and looking at musical theatre particularly. And we moved on to the second part, which was experience the arts as an audience member, so watching. And for this, some of you may know, if your students came and spoke to you about it, we focused on Shrek the Musical. We were able to find a really, really lovely version in really high quality of the version that was done on Broadway. It's a brilliant show. A majority of the students obviously are very familiar with the film, so it wasn't like we were introducing to something completely new. But the stage show is very different. So we were able to talk a lot to the students about what makes the difference between something that has been adapted for the screen and something that's adapted for the stage. Why have they chosen to include certain things that were in the film and maybe get rid of some other things? Why have they added completely new things in as well? We were also able to spend a huge amount of time relating the previous learning that we'd done about characterization and about creating a character through facial expression, physicality, and tone of voice, and to actually apply that when looking at the performers in the show. It was a really, really fun show. We split the watching of it over about sort of 3 or 4 lessons, and then we had the students write a review at the end of it so that they were able to put into their own words exactly what they thought of the show. We scaffolded those tasks so that students were given written prompts if they need them, and so that the more kind of confident students could go in and spend a little bit more time writing some more in-depth reviews. We then wanted to give the students more of an opportunity to look at the 3 different areas of performing arts when it came to experiencing the arts as a performer. So having done a little bit of drama work by looking at characterization and a bit of vocal tone, the next thing that we looked at was dance. So I was able to run a tutting unit, which I would normally actually have done with the students anyway, but it worked really well because tutting is exclusively almost hand-based gestures. So that's my laptop about to die. We could still do it while the students were sat down in their chairs, which was great. So we had lots of fun with, again, looking at the medium of tutting and talking about the historical context of it, where it came from, the idea that you have tutting as a visual stimulus actually coming from ancient Egypt because of hieroglyphics, but actually the form itself is an offshoot of hip-hop from the late 1970s, early 1980s. We looked at some of the techniques. I taught the students some short sections, and then they were asked to go away and choreograph some of their own work. We also did some really fun tasks where, still ensuring that they weren't moving around as a traditional dance class, we were able to seat them next to the mirrors in the dance studio and have them create some really awesome symmetrical tutting movements. If you haven't ever seen any tutting and you don't know what it is, you can talk to any of the guys and ask them, because they should hopefully still be able to show you some stuff. So having looked at drama and at dance, we then moved on to music. And again, we were kind of working out ways that we could try and get some kind of practical element in. And the way that came up by Mr. Curzon was a great idea. Was we have some musical instruments called boom whackers, which are essentially short lengths of plastic piping which are cut to particular lengths. The longer they are, the deeper the sound they make, and the shorter they are, the higher pitch the sound they make. So you can actually tune them to specific notes. And then we used a program online, so we would project everything up onto our screens at the front, and we take a particular piece of music, and each one of the notes in there would be highlighted, and the students would be told when they needed to hit the boom whackers. So we were able to create some of our own music. We combined that then with body percussion, so looking at how you can create beats, rhythms, and tempos using just your own body. We used some chairs and essentially the things that we had around us at the in the studio. So that would usually be chairs, desks, and then the boom whackers if we wanted to, in our own bodies. And the students were then tasked with going off and creating their own short piece of percussion as well, which was lots of fun, and we saw some amazing examples of that. We then moved on to doing some more technical theatre-based stuff. So having looked at the performing arts aspect in terms of the students being on stage or in front of a camera, we then looked at some of the more technical stuff, and that was really nice. So we focused to begin with on set design. We showed the students some fantastic examples, like the ones that should be coming up on the screen right now, and got them to talk about what those sort of images inspired, what they maybe thought the productions would be that these particular sets were taken from. And then again, we related it all the way back to Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. And we said, now that you know the show relatively well, if you were going to design a particular set for Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, which room in Willy Wonka's factory would you like to choose? How would you go about doing it? And we then taught them how you do a 2D model design, which looks like this. So you sketch out your ideas on there. And then we got a shed load of cardboard from all of the various bits of cardboard boxes and things that get delivered to the school with products in them. We were able to get all that cardboard, get lots of different bits of tape and wire and pins and things, and show the guys how they could start to make their own set designs. We also asked a lot of them to bring in their own shoe boxes as well, which actually has a brilliant tip, because they immediately form a 3D model of a set design. So I've got some examples here which you can have a quick look at, which I thought you might like to see. So this is when Charlie and the other golden ticket winners first come into Willy Wonka's factory. They go into the chocolate room, which is, if you remember the bit that's got the huge chocolate river, it's the bit where Augustus Gloop gets sucked up a huge chocolate pipe just there. And we had some really, really awesome designs from the kids. They went to town on it and did such a good job. You can see a little Oompa Loompa there. So that was lovely. That was a nice opportunity for them to do that. Once we'd done set design, we then continued with the idea of some more technical theatre-based stuff. And we ended up looking at shadow puppetry, which was loads of fun. It was personally something that I hadn't done before. This was Mrs. Dalgleish had done a course And so she was able to talk to us about how you go about designing a shadow puppet, how they work, use of light, use of perspective, etc. And again, we came up with some, rather the students came up with some really lovely things. So we had examples like this, where two of our students, I think it's three actually in this case, have worked together to create two shadow puppets that were interlinked. So we could make it look like they were dancing, which is lovely. We then also had a look at how you can use coloured gels and things to create different colours. It's a little difficult to see on the screen here, but this was a really cute little cartoon ninja, and you can just see there that we'd actually used a piece of red gel inside, and when you project it onto the wall, you can see there's a little bit of red colouring there. So that was super fun, really, really nice for the guys to do. This term, as we moved to a more remote style of learning, we had to really rack our brains about how we were going to be able to get the guys to engage with still some elements of practical within the performing arts. And so what we came up with was radio stations. If we were to look at a radio station and what it entails and the various different aspects of it, how could we get the students to be able to engage and essentially kind of create their own radio station? So at the moment, the various bits and bobs that we've done so far, or that we've been working on, and again, this is just purely since we came back since the Christmas holidays, we've looked particularly about establishing what the differences are between commercial and funded radio in the UK. We've spoken about the sort of aspects that you might expect to see on a traditional radio broadcast. So is it just going to contain music, or are there going to be interviews and competitions? Does it depend on what time of the day it is? Does it depend on what particular station it is that you're listening to? And we thought one of the ways that would be best to sort of get the kids involved would be to look at advertising. So whether it's a state-funded program like BBC Radio, who are only going to advertise their own products, or whether it's a commercial station like KISS, adverts play quite a big part of it. So we got them to look at how do you go about designing an advert and a slogan to go with it. And then the one that we've been doing most recently, which you may be familiar with if you've heard your kids tinkering around on little online piano apps and drum apps and things, is jingles, creating a jingle. So we did traditionally, or originally rather, a jingle for a specific product that they had created. And then just at the moment, the most recent thing that we looked at doing is jingles for a particular radio station broadcast as well. We'll continue looking at radio stations. We are obviously in a position whereby we are sort of designing this new scheme of learning as we're going, but we think some of the things that we're probably going to look at in the future will be things like Foley work, which is the people that create all the sound, or the sort of the background sounds that you would hear in a radio play, and then hopefully with an idea towards either getting the students to possibly work towards radio play or work towards creating their own show for broadcast. So that's it. That's what we've done so far since we've come back and the students have been in Year 8. We will continue to be looking at every option available to us to ensure that they are still able to get that combination of acting and dance and music all at once. But obviously, as I'm sure you can understand, we are rather bound by government guidelines and what we sort of can and can't do at the moment. We're obviously very much looking forward to getting back to school and to getting into a practical environment. But until then, the level of engagement that we've had from the students in Year 8 has been really fantastic. And so I think this new setup in this second lockdown of having structured times and lessons for them to work on has been going really well. We've been getting some lovely examples of work coming through from the students. They seem to be taking a real sense of ownership and pride in it, and it's lovely for us to be able to give feedback when we get that work in. So please do encourage them to keep doing so. We have our Year 8 options evening coming up. And obviously, if your student is interested in either dance or drama or performing arts, all three of which we have an option to offer at GCSE, then please do make sure that you are available for that. And also know that you can contact either myself or Miss Curzon or Mrs. Dalglish whenever via email, and we'll be more than happy to answer any questions that you have or any things that you want clarified with regards to the difference between the courses, what's entailed in them, and sort of what exams, etc. they'll be sitting at the end. So I hope that's been helpful for you. Please do feel free to contact us at any point. And until the next time that we actually get to see you all in person, we hope you're all staying safe and well, and take care of yourselves. Okay, cheers. Bye-bye.